Hello, fellow Geek Speakers. This is Tiff, one half of Geek Speak and Junk. Today we're going to be looking at this mailbox that I made from a kit and then painted. I did some adding to it and whatever. You can buy this kit at Boundless Brooklyn. They have a couple other things that I'm really excited to try out too, but this was the smallest and kind of like simplest project, so I thought I would start with this kit first. The first thing I want to mention is, this is what it'll look like when it's put together. The first thing I want to mention is that the scale is a little off for 6-inch figures. It would probably be better for almost like 8-inch, which I know there's like 7-inch, but so first I'm just going to show you how, the whole unboxing and putting it together. It was super easy and fast to put together. There was seriously just one piece of cardboard and then a sheet of glue dots. And it just tells you to fold all of it along the creases before you start trying to actually put the glue dots on there. And pop the tabs in where there's only 2 tabs on this one. Just pre-bend everything. One of the things that I read after is some people actually paint they do all the folding and then they paint the entire box before they put it together. I did not do that. I just put it together. I mean, it's a pretty simple, I wasn't doing any design on it other than just making it look like a mailbox, but I can see where that would come in handy if you were going to do some cool graffiti or even if some complicated, picture or something like that. I was just trying to make it look just like a regular mailbox. So really right there is it. Now I just have to put the glue dots. You only use 3 glue dots. And I thought I was going to need a tool to do it, but you don't. After I realized you can just take the plastic and stick it right on the thing. Don't ever touch the glue dot itself. And then there's a lot less hassle. And then literally done, and it's put together. So after it's put together, you can decide how you want to paint it and how you want to decorate it. I just used craft paint and some cinnamon for the rust or whatever, which was also the first time I ever did that. Or how else you want to customize it. So after I put a layer of glue on it, I decided that what would have been cool is if I would have added some rivets to the edges like a regular mailbox would have on it. So I should have done that actually before I put the layer of glue, but it goes to show that even if you have an idea after you start, you can still go back and do it. I wanted to add some rivets around the front and both sides, and then also a handle on the front where you would, pull to put the mail inside. So for the rivets, I used my half pearls that I got an assorted size kit off of Amazon. I'll put the link in the supply list below. And I chose what size I liked, which happened to be the smallest one in the kit, and glued them on there. And then I also, to make the handle, I used just a piece of a popsicle stick that I cut, and then I hot glued that on there. I mean, maybe you guys can think of some other great ways to customize it. I've seen some people add textures to it with like textured paint and stuff like that to make it look like there's layers and layers and layers of paint and rust, and how some real old ones can look. The one thing I didn't put on it at the end, which one of these times I'm actually going to attempt, but I haven't tried to do any graffiti yet. And a lot of these street things look so much better with some graffiti, but I have to do some practicing, I think, before. Sometimes I think it just looks like you hand-painted graffiti, and it doesn't look like spray paint or anything. So, I don't know, I'm going to have to play with that a little bit. Maybe you guys can think of some other ways that you could customize it. But I really do like how the rivets look, and then I also used one of the larger pearls and put like a knob on the front. You'll see when I start to add the rivets. Also, make sure you put more than one layer of paint on, so regardless of what kind you use. There's a couple layers of blue on there by the time I'm done, at least. So there are the half pearls. There's like 7 different sizes in the multi-pack that I got. You can also get some that have adhesive already on the back, like little stickers. I don't get those. Like, the only reason I didn't get it because I didn't know if it would add a little more height to it, and sometimes I want them more flush to the surface. So what I do is I take the little brush and I dab the paint onto the object wherever I'm going to want the pearl to be. So I make little dots of glue wherever I want the pearls to end up. Then I have the tool I'm using is actually used for nail art or something. That I have never used it for that, but so it's got a brush on one end and then you flip it over and it's got this little metal piece with a little round head on it. And if you just put like a little itty bitty dab of glue on it, you can just pick up the pearls. See, there's a pile of pearls on that plate in the middle, and you can just pick up the pearl with the tool, and just when it hits the glue, then it'll, see, I flipped it over, it'll stick to the glue on the piece. So it's kind of tedious and time consuming, but I really think that it adds some realism. You may want to do the rivets in a different way, or use different sizes or whatever you can come up with. I've also seen people use jewels. I think you can get all of these I got these at Amazon, but I'm sure you can get them at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. But sometimes you got to think out of the box. Think of anything that you could use that's, you know, similar in shape. You might be able to come up with something that you have on hand that would work perfect. Also, at the end, what I did not have a chance to do is add the post office emblem on the sides, and then I was also going to put one of those, you know, those little stickers with the times, like pickup, delivery, whatever. My printer stopped working, so I could not print them out to put them on there, but I will be adding them at some point. I think those little details are what really gives it the realistic look when you're done, and makes some little fake mail. And but again, I don't think anybody in the photographs that Pete does is really going to be using it, because like I said, the scale is a little off. So what I do think it'll look good is kind of in the background in one of the pictures next to one of the buildings. I think it'll be fine. If the character is too close up to it, though, you're going to be able to see the size difference. I should have paid more attention when I was ordering it, but I wanted to try it anyway. Sometimes, you know, you're surprised by how the scale works out. So now I'm adding the rivets on the front of it, and it has like a line in it and a dot sort of to symbolize where the mailman would be able to use the key and open it, and then open the front and pull the mail out. So I was kind of wanted to use the rivets to outline that a little bit. And I'm not being very scientific about it. You can see they're not all completely even. Some people, you know, it can be as time consuming as you want it to be. If you don't have a tool like the one I have with the metal thing on it, it also works fine to use a pencil, or I suppose even a pen, and anything with a point that you can and just a little itty bit of glue when you're dabbing to pick up the gem or the pearl. So then when I'm done getting all the pearls on there, I also use a blow dryer in between stages to speed up the process a little bit when I don't want to sit there and wait for the glue to dry and for the paint to dry. It really does work really well. Some people use even heat guns. I don't even have a heat gun, but the blow dryer seems to work really well for me. Also, this company, the Boundless Brooklyn, I've also ordered a water tower and a billboard that hopefully you'll see those in the future. I'll do some tutorials on those. I haven't decided exactly how I want to paint those yet, so kind of waiting on that. But those I know are much more in scale with the 6-inch figures, if that's what you use. They also on their website offer different sizes in the water tower. They offer actually 3 different sizes. So I think you would be good if you do the 3-inch figures, the 6-inch figures, or possibly the 12-inch. I think the big one is big enough for that. And they have a couple other things on there. You should check it out. They also have a skateboard ramp and a lifeguard booth thing, like a lifeguard house that would go on the beach, and I think a lighthouse. So they're pretty cool. There's some other diorama people that use some of these things. That's how I discovered them. So they're pretty neat. It's fun if you start looking around other people's Instagrams and other people's YouTube just to get ideas. I mean, I watch hours and hours of YouTube to get ideas for all of my dioramas. That's how you can, you gotta look at other people's stuff to get to be creative yourself sometimes. So then I just hot glued that on there. And then I did use the blow dryer at this point so that I could put another layer of blue over everything. The one thing I have noticed also, I did put a little hot glue on the edge so it wouldn't pop up like it was doing, because I thought that was taking away from the realism a little bit. But the pearls do, like, you can put one coat of paint on them and it seems to adhere just fine. When you start to add more layers, it almost like washes the paint off from underneath, I assume, because they're so slippery, you know, the finish on the pearl. So in the next time I try them, I'm gonna actually maybe put a coat of just the white glue and over it and see if that'll act like a primer more so that the paint will adhere to it a little better. Because like right now it's going on fine, and then when I start to do the next layers and add the rust in and stuff like that, you'll see in that middle one is just actually an upside down pearl to make it look like a knob. But it'll sometimes wipe off the paint, which actually on this project I do try to wear some places down so it actually looks like metal. So with the rivets, that actually will work out a little bit if they're a little shiny. But not always, of course. And as you start to paint everything blue, it really does transform it. I think it looks pretty real. So now it's just up to you deciding on how old you want to make it look. Do you want it to be a brand spanking new mailbox? Or is it going to be old and rusty? Or is it going to be graffiti covered? Is it going to be dented? I think that you could easily make it all banged up and stuff like that. Bringing out the blow dryer again to speed up the process for you. And blowing everything around the table. So I only used a couple colors of paint in this whole project. I used the blue for the base coat, and then I got a reddish brown color. I think it's actually called brick something of the craft paint. And then I also used, I think it was a raw umber, a darker brown, and then I used a gray and silver, and then the cinnamon. So how I start off is with the raw umber, the darker brown, and I just dab around where I think would be the most rusty parts of the mailbox. And that's pretty, you know, maybe you just want a little, maybe you want a lot. This one I actually put a lot on it just because I wanted to play with the techniques a little bit, and I'd never used the cinnamon, so I keep hearing about everybody using cinnamon. So I wanted to give that a shot, and so I used a lot of rust in this. And and I always start with my darker color and then work my way to the lighter color. And then when I'm doing stuff like the rust and the wearing, I normally do my base color, even when I've done like those stripes and stuff on the, like the caution stripes on steps and stuff like that. You do your base color, then you paint your rust or your stripes or whatever over it, and get that all how you want it to do, all the layers of color. And then what I normally do is at the end I'll go back and I'll add some blue back in, or whatever your base color is in, and that's how you can make it look more worn so it doesn't actually look painted. Sometimes it's, you kind of got to go back and forth a little bit to get rid of some of your brush strokes and stuff like that. It's hard to make it look random, and I didn't really do much to the back of it, honestly, because I figured that it would we wouldn't use the back as much. Then you can decide how, a lot of people, even look at some pictures of how things rust on Google, and you know, how does the rust go around the bolts, and how does it go around the joints. And I always feel that you see more of it along the edges of wherever the metal is. So the edges of your object, the edges of where there's a break in the metal. So where the doors are, or the door for the mail and for the cabinet for the mail. You can get some really cool effects when you're using bigger rivets too, with like where the water would drip down, and that would be where it would rust. In crevices, the water's going to gather and you're going to get more rust. And some things rust in a darker brown, and some things rust with a brighter orange. So I normally always use like a dark brown and then a red and sometimes a brighter orange when I'm doing rust. Everybody does their rust a little different. And next time I actually might do the cinnamon a little different. This time when I got done painting, I just kind of used the paint as its own adhesive, and just kind of started sprinkling it everywhere over the trash can and kind of let it fall where it may. Next time I might actually just put some out and pick up the dust and place it actually more precisely, but it's definitely fun. And I thought these were rather easy to paint when they were assembled, because they were hollow. You can just put your whole hand under it. I actually like it with just the dark brown on it too. I could have left it more like that with the added stickers. I think it would have looked rather nice that way. And for doing stickers, or I don't actually make stickers, I just print out a piece of paper, but whenever you're adding signage or labels or posters or whatever to your dioramas or your props, I just go on Google and I find whatever image I want, and then I go into Illustrator and size it appropriately, so that it'll fit in scale with whatever I'm using. And I always make sure to save those files, because inevitably you'll use, you know, down the road you never know what dioramas you're going to use or what you want. But I don't often make my own from scratch. I normally just find something that's out there I'm not a fantastic graphic designer or anything. I'm not great with Illustrator, but at least I can size stuff. So I was just going to go snag the eagle head logo from the post office and put it on there. So then what I do with the lighter colors, I put it around the edge of the dark color, because I always think that the rust is it's darker in the metal if there's like a spot, and then it would be more bright orange at the edge. I don't actually know if that's like scientifically how rust works, but this is what I like to do. And then I added a bunch to the rivets, I always feel like they're gonna be, and more on the feet, because the water's always gonna end up running down the feet of the box. And I don't worry too much about messing up because it's just paint. You can always paint over it with some blue if you don't like how it turned out. If you think you added too much, or then just wait till it dries and go back in with your original color and cover some of it up. I think it looks more realistic when you do that anyway a little bit. It helps get rid of some of the paint marks or the brush marks, your strokes and stuff. I do think that these smaller props are just such a great addition to the displays in your photos. Just those little things, and like fire hydrants and newspaper holders and street signs of any kind. Just those little things add such a cool little element to make the scenes much more lifelike. It's like it's just a mailbox, but I mean, I think it can make the whole scene look realistic, especially if you're using some of the flatter sets out there, like the extreme sets, which are totally awesome, but they're not, I mean, the structures are 3D, but the stuff on them isn't. So it's like if you take one of those and you put something that's actual 3D in front of it, and you give some space that the characters can move around, it will really help with the realism. Actually, in the scale of this would work really well with the extreme sets. Some of their buildings are pretty large. Now it's fun for the cinnamon. So I really didn't know what I was going to be doing. So I literally just took it off camera and shook it over the garbage can, just so it wouldn't be all over and I did it on all the different sides a little bit. It went a little crazy, I think, but then I kind of liked it. And then what I was going to do is see what happens when it was all done. I'm going to try to seal it. I'm not sure what will happen to the cinnamon if I try to put a sealer over it, so we'll have to see, but I may have to go back in and add a little more. So now, after I have the cinnamon on there and my rust, and there's my lunch that just arrived, I went back in and wanted to have some spots that looked like the paint was just totally scratched off to the metal without it being rusted. So around the handle and around some of the edges, I went in with a lighter color gray and then a silver metallic color. Sometimes I use the gray separate and then go over it with the metallic. Sometimes I mix the metallic in there a little bit. Just kind of playing around to see what I like, how it looks the best. Some spots I think I put a little too much of the silver and stuff, so then I go back in and add a little more blue in there, and I make a couple of the bolts look like they've just worn off. But that's also a very cool trick if you ever have anything that's made out of metal. Even it doesn't have to be rusted, but if you want it to look like the paint is scratched off, just add some of the silver and, like a white gray silver, and then once it's on there, go back over it a little bit, do a dusting dry brush of the base color, and it'll look like the paint was chipped or scratched or peeling off, whatever it is. And I go back and I keep touching up the pearls because the paint keeps getting wiped off by all the different layers. Definitely going to try the glue trick next time and see what happens. Sometimes, and these are some of the most important times to be random. It's like, don't go all in the middle, don't space them, exactly apart. It's hard though. So this project took probably from start to finish about an hour or so, hour 20 minutes. Obviously I sped up and cut the video down so you wouldn't have to watch that long, and I think that's you get a nice result for that amount of time put into it. Next time I'm definitely going to try some graffiti. I'll be brave. there's some beautiful graffiti artists. I just don't want to, I just don't think mine will turn out as good, so we'll have to see. So right now I'm going around the corners of what would be that flap in the front where the mail would come out. So that's where I thought the most wear would be, is on the edges on various places. Anything to make it look more worn. So now I'm going to start going back in with a little blue and just going around some of the edges of some of the colors as I'm eating, you know. I kind of forgot I was videotaping when I started eating the sandwich. It's kind of fun. Just doing my thing. That's really all there is to this one. Just fine-tuning the details any way that you'd want them to be, adding more or less, you know, distressing and damage, however you'd want it. You know, be as creative as you can. So all I did was order the kit from, again, the name of the company is Boundless Brooklyn. I think it's boundlessbrooklyn.com if I'm not mistaken. And then I just used whatever craft paint I had on hand, which I'll put some links to that stuff in the supply list as well. Some paintbrushes. You don't need any adhesive really to put it together. I did use some hot glue to seal some of the joints. Just, that was personal preference. You don't need to do that. Then I used the pearls, some white glue to put the pearls on there. Just one piece of a popsicle stick. And then the cinnamon, and that was about it. So, and then your imagination. So be sure to check out the supply list down there. I'll have links to all these different places, just to make it easier for you. And I look forward to hearing if anybody does some of their own. I would love to see how yours turned out. Here's just some pictures of what it would look like in a diorama on one of the sidewalks or whatever. So thank you guys once again for stopping in and watching this tutorial. If you want to support our channel, we do have a link for a t-shirt that we made, a Respect Your Shelf t-shirt, down in the comments below. And be sure, like always, to go follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Sometimes we put some stuff up on Etsy. You never know when that's going to happen. Please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate the support, and it's been really fun. Take care, everybody, and always remember to respect your shelf.